FaZe played Gambit in a full best of 3 this morning, which FaZe very narrowly won. But I thought in this video I'd cover the match in general and just cover really what stood out to me with respect to Dosia's new role as the in-game leader of Gambit. So the first place to start, I guess, would be Train, where there was a very weird thing where Gambit first won 12 out of 15 CT rounds, then FaZe came back and won 12 out of 15 CT rounds, and it went to overtime, and Gambit went ahead and won that. What stood out to me about this game was like this narrative that I'm always pushing, that Gambit are a good CT side team. I'll talk about a theory about this in Gambit and FaZe on Gambit CT side later, but yeah, really good CT side by Gambit on Train, really unexpected. Fitch adding more skill to the CT side is an obvious benefit because, you know, Zeus could be a liability, sort of playing those forward positions on the A side of Train as a CT defender. But on the T side, that's sort of what concerns me for Gambit watching this game. You saw over and over, maybe 4 times, that on gun rounds, Gambit would try to do these 4B1A setups, or 4B1A execute, where Adren would be sort of would be all by himself on the A side by Ivy, and then the other 4 players would execute on B, and Adren would try to come out Ivy and try to get some sort of play there, some sort of distraction, and get some kills there, you know, with a flank or alert kills or whatever you want to call that. But it just never worked out. I don't know if I don't really think it was the strength of FaZe's CT defenders either. I just don't think that Gambit were fooling anyone. It was very straightforward, and it got punished time and again. Now I think maybe Hobbit was able to get it down to a 1v1, him versus Kerrigan, where he was like on top of the trains trying to find Kerrigan below in that round, and that might have been a round that Gambit could have won, like that was a B execute round. But I don't think they won any of those rounds. I think that was a lot of wasted gun rounds that Gambit just it didn't look successful, and they kept trying it again and again. It just didn't work. And, you know, when they had Zeus, they seemed like they were able to, not always, but fairly consistently get off these executes as Ts. So that's a concern moving forward is, you know, does Dosia, like, maybe this is something that worked in practice, but Dosia, you know, thought would work eventually if he kept doing it again. But, you know, they didn't have that in-game adjustment. And I saw me and Suchu joking on Twitter that, I mean, of course I see me joking on Twitter, but that they could have used a mid-game call from Zeus in that scenario to change it up. What's the weaknesses? What's the weakness of FaZe's CT side? Where should we go? Where should we push to change our outcomes here? Because we're just failing over and over again. If you actually watch those 3 rounds that Gambit won on the T side, one was the pistol round. Then it was like round 13. A Molotov and Ivy convinces Nico to actually push Ivy, because like he was in the middle of the Molotov, and just get wrecked and killed immediately. And that leads to like a 5-man push onto the A site of Train, where, you know, there's no defenders because they sort of play defensively in response to that kill, and Gambit just went ensuing 5v4. And then the 15th round, I think, was the other round that Gambit won, and that was a round where the camera's on sort of this 1v1 trade happening at Ivy, and I didn't see it, but there was some sort of trade happening where Mo killed Guardian on the other side of the map somewhere. Yeah, I didn't look up in time to see it on the mini map. But yeah, so that was a 4v3, and that's just Gambit punishing the aggressive CT play of FaZe rather than them winning through execute. So that's a concerning side for Gambit, and specifically for their Train and their CT sides on Train. Because, you know, at the PGL Major, Gambit was able to pretty consistently win between like 6 to 8 rounds, I would say was a good mark, which is pretty good for, it's any team to get 6 to 8 rounds versus the best teams in the world. But I thought like what was the difference maker was their their CT sides, which could get like on a good game like 9, like 8 to 11 maybe. So yeah, I thought that's a concern moving forward for Gambit is those T sides on Train. Moving on to Inferno. Not a lot to talk about here. I guess it was pretty much a blowout. FaZe's T side ran over Gambit's CT side pretty thoroughly on the opening half of Inferno. I don't remember at least Gambit playing Inferno at the not the PGL Major, but DreamHack Masters not Las Vegas, but Malmo. DreamHack Masters Malmo. But with Fitch in the lineup, the setup is now Hobbit and Fitch, I believe, at the B site, and everyone else at the A site, which I thought is a weird move because what I thought would make Gambit really successful on the CT side, at least, of Inferno at the PGL Major was the combination of their two best players on the B side, Adren and Hobbit, and them being very confident. And, after the initial sort of volley of grenades go down to find very forward positions on Banana, then maybe one person holds Banana, the other person tries to flank and go, or flank or just rotate over to the A site. They could either go really late and try to get a flank off, or they go early and one person just goes sort of through CT spawn into arch side and just be an extra A defender. But with Fitch, I thought he was regularly killed without trade. On the B site, he had one round which looked really bad towards the end where he had like a pop flush and he like panicked, overcommitted or something, and he like tried to spray down 3 people. It just really didn't work out, and it made him look pretty bad. But yeah, I think he was regularly sort of abused on the B side of Inferno, which was a bad sign there. And I just wonder, like when I saw Gambit play Cobblestone at DreamHack Masters Malmo, their CT positions were changed because of Zeus left, where like Hobbit was drop down room and Fitch was originally going to play like the B ramp sort of area, like the initial contact guy on B on Cobblestone, right? But then like halfway through they actually switched him to like A long. So I don't know if that was them like panicking. He's like, oh, we got to do something different because this isn't working, or yeah, they did really bad in that Cobblestone game, which is sort of atypical per their old history on Cobblestone. And I think that's just because they don't have the CT positions worked out. I wonder if that's the same sort of story on Inferno with this new lineup. It's just where's Fitch going to be comfortable? And yeah, I guess that's another sort of topic we can talk about later. But going to Cash is another close overtime game. Now, in comparison to the Train game, which was really lopsided, I think you got some good interplay on both T and CT sides where both teams won rounds. It was pretty even on both halves. And, this sort of goes back to the PGL Major again, where Adren actually started calling on the T side of Cash versus G2 when they played G2 in the group stage, or the Swiss system, rather. Or at least that's what he said in a post-game interview. He said something weird like, yeah, the first 2 gun rounds didn't work, so I took over, started calling some weird T side shit. Or some stupid shit on the T side, and it worked. Some crazy quote like that. But if you actually watch that game, it was a lot of A executes, and a lot of those A executes, Adren was personally opening up those bomb sites. And I think you saw that later at Malmo, where Adren seems to have this. I think he has 2 sort of special capabilities that makes him particularly good at A side executes on Cash. So I think maybe this is confirmation bias. I don't know if this is me seeing this because I just, for whatever reason, got into my mind that he's good at this or what. But I think Adren gets a lot of kills through smokes. There's like a couple clips in my mind of Adren just getting like multiple kills on Cobblestone where he like like, you know, they just do that smoke wall to bisect the site, and it trends sort of on the other side, on the left side by Rock, and he just sort of can get spray down kills. I think this was, he actually got 3 kills through smokes in a game versus Pro, and this is sort of the clip in my mind that might have created the confirmation bias. But I think he can get these weird through smoke kills on Cash fairly regularly. I saw 1 versus FaZe today. I think just 1. But I think that's what he's pretty good at that. But I think he also has this very weird sense. I probably need to watch a demo or something of him doing it, of him playing these AA executes on Cash. But he has this very weird understanding where he can just sort of snake through the smokes and end up on the other side of the wall of smokes on Cash and just get these weird kills and just clear out the sites by himself. You know, like he like wrapped around quad and killed like a guy playing quad, you know, from like the truck side of the site versus on an AXQ, which is just so bizarre to me. Like, I just didn't make any sense when it switched to his perspective when I see him like flanking this guy playing the quad position today versus FaZe. So I think he has a very like intuitive, weird. You can just feel the map or feel that feel like where the CT defenders are and like how to move through that site somehow in a weird way and open up those sites very well. I think that the ability of Gambit to win those T rounds on Cash is really what's made them pretty decent on Cash. And then on the CT side, you know, it's sort of the classic thing I always talk about, that they're good. They have a good CT side, and it's generally suited to doing well in retakes because of the passiveness of their players, and they're sort of very veteran members of their team, and they can always sort of regroup and know how to respond best and win these retakes in Cash. Like, especially the A site's like really open, and you can win a lot of retakes there. So I think that sort of lends itself to a good T side for Gambit. So I think Cash is a good map for them. It looks still good with Fitch, but again, Fitch was looking really poor on the A side of Cash as a CT defender this game. He had a really poor game generally on Inferno and Cash. So that's another concern. I wonder if Fitch just like, he just has his spots and he doesn't have his spots. Like, he just looks good really in this spot, he just looks terrible in another spot. Or like maybe because he's like got transplanted to Gambit, he like got some of the like spots he didn't want, and like that's why he looks so bad now. I don't know what it is, but he did not look good in the remaining 2 games, the last 2 games of the day today. He looked better in overtime versus FaZe, but you know, I think he sort of catch back up in the kill count. But yeah, did not have a lot of success on the A side of Cash. But yeah, that's sort of my thoughts. But for more like broader thoughts on what I think of Gambit differently, let's go through the players. So I'll go through each player. So first, number 1 statistically for Gambit was Hobbit. Hobbit, I think, is the best player on Gambit right now next to Adren. He might even be better than Adren right now. Adren didn't have a super great series here. He had a good series. He also looked a little weaker when in a superstar level or a star level when he was in game leading before. So I think Hobbit's a very, very good player. Maybe a top 20 player now. He gets these high impact entry kills very often. He also has these hero plays. You know, he famously had those clutches on Inferno versus Immortals in the PGL major finals. He also had that one really good play today versus FaZe where he like killed the bomb planet with 3 seconds left and somehow didn't die. And he was like a 1v4 situation, and somehow he won the round for Gambit, even though, yeah, that was ultimately inconsequential because they got crushed on the CT side of Inferno. But anyway, yeah, so I think Hobbit's a smart player, and he's doing very well. I think he's a very strong player for them right now. And then I think the second best performing player in terms of pure numbers, which I don't rate super highly, is actually Dosia. And what's weird about that is because about Dosia doing so well in this series is that when in the previous lineup with Zeus, I thought of him as the second worst player on the team, just above Zeus. And then on this lineup, I think of him as being the worst player. I just don't think he's you know, a very effective player. He's a very passive CT player, and I mean, just sort of classic criticisms of him that he's very selfish. He just does whatever he wants, blah blah blah. He just walks around the map. They just not find the same impact as other players. But I wonder if he had a good series here. You know, sometimes randomly Dosia has a really, really good series. Like, he had a really good, all throughout DreamHack Austin, he was really good. And then he had that one series versus Fnatic at the PGL Major. But, yeah, he had a good series here, pretty good series. I wonder if it's because on the CT side, he's like sort of forced to be more part of the action because he's the in-game leader, that he's having more impact. He has to like go with everyone else. He doesn't have the time to think, okay, what do I need to do in this situation? He's just a part of the group because he has to focus on what's happening holistically, that he's just sort of letting his talent dictate finally. I wonder if that's a factor and he's not just playing some like weird lurk role, playing really slow for himself, and that's sort of helping his game, or if it's just, you know, right, it's just one series, so you can't put too much weight into that. Next, I think, is Mo, Team Zopper. Mo, I think, is getting a little overhyped recently. I think he had a very good series versus Strauss at the PGL Major, but I think generally he's an pretty average. Okay, I think his normal level is between pretty good and average. Bad series, he's just an average player. Pretty good series, he's pretty good. Yeah, he's not a superstar ever. I don't think he... See, when I talk about individual players, I'm not super confident because I don't consider myself an expert and that sort of thing, and that's something I focus on. I think it's just like the way he plays the op with his like flick speed is not conducive to being like a very aggro opper where he makes like these dramatic, you know, he moves, he peeks the angle and tries to take out the other opper, the guy standing there. Because, you know, I think he is like a more slower, more stable opper, good at like medium distances and not super long distances and super short distances, or playing these really neat tight angles, or winning these really good, these really fast peaks, these op duels, or these aim battles. I think he's better at people coming into his crosshair and him just hitting the shot with good consistency. So he's sort of very unlike a Device, who seems to try to pick on enemy oppers, or Fallen, who tries to do these like aggressive plays, or a Kenny S, who has these, you know, the crazy flick kills and these insane reaction kills. He's, I think, a very different player. I don't think he just has a skill set that's suited to be a superstar, but he can be a consistent performer. And occasionally, like game of his life versus Strauss on Overpass, where he wins those retakes, which I think was just an act of God. It's just very bizarre. Like that game, I think about like the game all the time. Astralis versus Gambit on Overpass, the game one of their best of 3 series at the PGL Major, where Gambit wins like 10 or 11 CT rounds to win that game. It's just, they won a lot. They won like 6 retakes on the B site. It was insane. I think 50 times over, they only win that 2-3 times. They win that game 2-3 times. But yeah, anyway, I think Mo was getting a little overhyped. He had a good series here, though. I think he was good to pretty good in this outing. Now, Adren's actually had the 4th most kills. I mean, I don't know how, again, like, those sort of statistics are kind of dumb, just who has the most kills and who has the least. But yeah, I think he, you know, like I said, before he had a lot of impact on Cash. He has some impact kills. You know, he can be an aggressive like entry player. I don't think he was very effective on Train when they did those 4-1 setups. I don't know if the lack of effectiveness of the B executes was what hurt him, or if he had a good in practice or something. He had a good sense for Ivy, like he had a good sense for the A side of Cash. We get these kills, but it just wasn't happening versus FaZe today. So that was sort of a sore point for me. I don't think he had a great series. He was okay. He was pretty good today. I don't think he was super special. And then Fitch, yeah, like I talked about before with him, I think he had a pretty poor last 2 maps. Now he had a really, really good map on Train. I saw people going crazy on Twitter like, he's the real deal. What's Kazakhstan made of? But yeah, yeah, it's sort of concerned to me. Like, is he going to be able to stand up to the best teams in the world? Is he just very map specific, depending on where his CT positions are, where he feels comfortable? So that's something to watch out for moving forward with Fitch. But my broad thoughts are for Gambit, I wonder if this series, like I referenced this at the beginning, the reason why Gambit CT side looks so good on Train versus FaZe, what I always say about Gambit is they win retakes, and they also have pretty good rotations. They're very, they seem to be able to react better than other teams and be in the right spot more quickly. Like I talked about with Inferno, where they only have one guy at B, and they have like not always, but a pretty good rate could have like 4 guys on A and be very prepared for those A executes. But I wonder if like versus teams like FaZe or G2 that's more straightforward, that Gambit's rotations aren't necessarily like really brilliant, but that they over-rotate and rotate very fast, faster than the other team, which gives them advantages versus teams who are simpler to read, like a Mouse Sports, because Gambit had a good game on Inferno versus Mouse Sports in the PGL Major Swiss system, or FaZe here, because Gambit beat FaZe previously at DreamHack Masters Malamo, and they almost beat them here. Like if very like straightforward T sides, they just do very well against, because it's just the way they do their rotations is so like aggressive. They just rotate immediately or rotate quicker than other people, or just buy into early indications of an execute, like flashbangs or grenades or whatever. That just works versus teams that aren't going to do a fake, not going to try to fake you out last minute, like typical Astralis style. They try to really run the clock down and like try to get all the defenders on one side and then quickly rotate to the other side. That actually worked versus Gambit's Inferno. You saw Astralis catching Hobbit out alone, like 5v1 on the B site, multiple times when they played Gambit and Inferno in that semifinals of the PGL Major. So that's something I'm curious about, if it's just a FaZe v Gambit like specific thing where Gambit's looks especially good versus them because it's like a stylistic thing. Yeah, I think that's just my thoughts on the series. And then moving forward, let's see how good Gambit T sides can be under Dosia, and if Dosia can keep up this level of performance as the in-game leader. It's sort of odd that he had a better performance now that he's in-game leading. So we'll see if those hold true moving forward.